Hi everybody, this is Katie with Empowering Astrology, and I am at empoweringastrology.com, but also on Instagram too, at Empowering Astro. And I wanted to do another live feed now that it's June and give you a little bit of an inside look as to what's going on with each of the signs. I've also selected two winners for a free mini reading. They are Taryn and Aubrey. I will email you afterwards just to confirm. But now that it's June, it's Gemini season, what can we expect? So I wanted to go sign by sign very quickly, and hopefully you guys have read my June horoscopes. And if you've not, you can, after the live after the live Instagram live, you can go to my website, empowering.com. The link is in the bio, and you can read all about your sign. And I also say do read for your rising sign. And I know that not everybody knows their rising sign, but if you have your exact birth time, it really does help to have a more of a wider picture of what's going on. And just a little tidbit on astrology, especially if you're starting to learn astrology, a question that I get asked many times is which is more accurate, the sun sign horoscope or the rising sign horoscope? And I actually think they're both accurate. And it's weird to think that two different signs can give you correct information, but it's just about a different shift of perspective. And I tell people that your life runs on two clocks. You have the clock of your sun sign, and then you have the clock of your rising sign. And for those who are new to astrology, the rising sign is simply the sign that is rising in the east at the moment that you're born. And it sets the four directions of your life. It tells you which way is north, which way is career, which way is relationship, which way is home and family. So it's very invaluable if you can get your hands on it. And I realize not everybody can find their birth time because different countries have different laws about recording the times, or family members don't. So sometimes you can't always have that exact birth time. But I see that somebody wrote about having a Cancer rising and a sun in Capricorn, and those are actually two opposite signs. So that means you're born near sunset, and people that are born near sunset, their life tends to have these contrasts, these polarizations, that you can live a life of opposites. So that's why you'll read, let's say, your Cancer horoscope, and then you'll read your Capricorn horoscope, and they almost seem like they're contradicting each other, but that's kind of the tension of your life. So I wanted to use this opportunity again to go quickly through the signs, and then also talk about a little bit of what's happening for June with my two winners, Taryn and Aubrey. I also want to let you know that I'm doing more webinars. In fact, this is a good segue to what's happening in June of the astrology of June this year, because June really sets us up for July, which I know that sounds like a bad joke or something, but the reality is that in July we have two eclipses. We have a solar eclipse on July 2nd, and I'm saying this from the perspective of New York. This might be slightly different if you are in Australia, and I know a lot of you are in Australia. And then also on the 16th of July, a lunar eclipse. And so what does this mean? Every time that we have eclipse season, and this happens every 6 months, it's time for, let's say, the wheel of your life to shift. Now, sometimes it's a not so dramatic shift. It's doors open and close, there's some changes, and sometimes it's a dramatic shift depending on what sign you are. So as we go into June, we're getting prepared for let's say, the wheel of our life shifting. And if you are a Aries, a Cancer, a Capricorn, and a Libra, and Capricorn and Cancer in particular, the wheel of your life is actually turning a little bit more than the other signs. That's because the eclipses are in the signs of Cancer and Capricorn. So June sets us up. We may feel like things are really shifting and starting to move this month. I know that it's Gemini season in June for the most part, a month that typically is about moving and being active, and really active of the mind in particular, because Gemini is a sign of communication. So we may find that sometimes eclipses energy, it happens even, let's say, a few weeks or even a month before the actual eclipse. So really pay attention to what's going on. But I wanted also to, what I was trying to say is that I'm going to be doing a webinar on the eclipses on June 25th. You can still register if you can't join me live. It will be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I know that's quite early in Australia, or during the work hours in Los Angeles. So if you go to my website, if you go to the link in bio, it'll say classes and events, and you can learn more, and I hope that you can join me. So I wanted to go through quickly what's going on for the signs in June. So Aries, and if you are an Aries that's listening, please give me a little heart emoji or wave. So Aries, you're one of the people, or one of the signs rather, that's in the, let's say, the doorway, the gateway for some big changes. And these changes have been happening in your career and in your home. So what does that mean? That means if you are an Aries, it's quite possible that there's some movement that's happening, or maybe you are literally moving this month or next month as the eclipses start to line up with these very sensitive parts of your chart. But Aries, it's really important for you to be in consciousness that you are, let's say, 2/3 of the way through a 3-year story where you have to figure out what you want to do when you grow up. It doesn't matter if you are 25 or 75, we all have to figure out what we want to do, the role that we want to play in the world. So you're under a lot of pressure this month, Aries, to really answer some of those questions. And in particular, the middle of June, Mars is what's called your ruling planet, is going to make what's called an opposition to both Saturn and Pluto. And the best kind of analogy I can give you is you've got a date with, let's say, the man upstairs. Maybe that sounds like God, but like I always say Saturn is the planet. He has like a clipboard. He makes you sit down and he says, okay, what have you been doing? In that very sort of stern way that we expect from a parent or an authority. So you've got your date with the man with the clipboard, June 14 all the way to June 19th. And all I can say, Aries, is make sure that you are doing what you need to do this month. You are tying up your loose ends. You're being your best self, because Saturn is that planet that really is trying to get us to grow up and mature and to be our best selves. So you might find that there's a lot of, like I said, pressure on you this month, Aries. But it is travel season for you, Aries. So between the new moon and the full moon on June 17th, you might be making plans to travel, both around you or even possibly abroad, or taking a long distance vacation. It's a time for you to get curious and to see the world and to try new things. But that said, you are under pressure this month to really figure some things out. And the eclipse on July 2nd, it might coincide with a natural time when you are making changes in your home, or maybe even making a move. So not every Aries or Aries rising is moving, but eclipses in that part of the chart do sometimes coincide with a move, so it might be a natural time for you to move. Taurus. So Gemini season for you, Taurus. Now you're coming off your birthday, and this is a time when you have this new year and you have all these new ideas, and like, what are you going to do with them? So Gemini seasons for Taurus is typically a time when you're thinking about money, resource, and stability. Do you have enough? whether it's the money that you make with your job or the kind of the resources that you have available. So it's a time when you are gathering what you need this month. But it's important, I think with the lunar eclipse, with the full moon on June 17th, you have to, let's say, face some of your fears this month. Maybe even fears around money and stability. This full moon is lighting up what's called your Sagittarius, which is your sign that helps you to connect with the energy of vulnerability and intimacy and your psyche. And so you're really, let's say, doing some deep work this month. And I know my friend who's listening, who's Taurus, she's probably saying, how much more work do I have to do? And I hear you. I can hear you psychically. So money is, I think, a big deal this month for, just reading the comments, money is the focus this month for Taurus. But I think that with the what's called the Mars-Saturn opposition this month and the Mars-Pluto opposition this month, I think that there's a bigger story that's happening around what do you believe in? How do you see the world? What's your faith? And so a lot of, Taurus is having to do a lot of change right now. And with big change, which, by the way, Taurus typically doesn't like, it might be kind of shaking your sense of faith. Is this going to work out? So you might be having to do a lot of, let's say, more existential thinking this month. Moving on to, I will also say with Taurus is that Venus goes into Gemini on June 8th, and it'll be in Gemini for the rest of the month. And so that typically is a time when Taurus feels very kind of flirty, flirtatious, social. I personally like Venus in Gemini. It's a very charming placement for Venus. So Gemini, so happy birthday, Gemini. If you are a Gemini, please wave and say hello. It is your birthday season, and I think Gemini is a couple of ways in which this is cutting out for you right now. And I wrote about this in my June horoscopes. So Gemini, one of your major planets is Jupiter. And right now, and this has been since November, and this will be until the end of this year, so December, Jupiter has been in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is your relationship sign. So on one hand, this is a very natural time for Gemini to make connections, to open up, to be in relationship, maybe even be in a new relationship. But Jupiter has been making what's called a square all year long to Neptune. And so what I'm noticing is that there's a little bit of an existential crisis possibly happening with Gemini right now. And the reason I'm saying that, in addition to the fact that Saturn right now is in what's called your 8th house, your 8th sign. So this has not been an easy time for Gemini. In fact, I've had a lot of Gemini rising clients lately, and I think it's a sign that's typically very adaptable. It likes a lot of freedom. It likes to do its own thing. But then you have Saturn right now until next year, and this very sensitive part of the chart, the 8th house, the 8th sign. And so it's making you sit down and do the deep work, the deep emotional work. And if you are a Gemini or Gemini rising, it's maybe a really good time. No, I always tell people I can't tell you what to do. But you might find that this time is very well served by working with a therapist or working in some sort of modality where you feel safe and supported, that you can trust the process, where you are really facing the things that you maybe haven't had the courage to face previously. The thing about astrology is that it tells us what time it is, and sometimes it's time to do really deep and powerful work. And when Saturn leaves this part of your chart next year, you can rest assured that this is not going to happen for another 28, 29 years. So like I said, it's, we all have our time when we have to kind of face Saturn and we have to do the really deep emotional work. And that's what's happening for you right now, Gemini. which is, on the upside, you're a very flexible sign. But I think that this month is really making you face your fears. And I say this as a Scorpio, so I think it's very healthy to face our fears from time to time. Because when we face them, they're no longer our fears. I don't know, just a thought. So that's the big news for Gemini. I will also say that other than the fact that it's your birthday, happy birthday again, that full moon on June 17th is lighting up your relationship sign. So if you are in partnership, you might need to figure some things out with your partner. And this is not a bad thing. Figure things out can mean, hey, we're moving in together, or we are doing something, different phase or chapter with the relationship. If you are single, then this might be a natural time when you are naturally connecting with somebody. So that is Gemini. Oh, and then Venus does get to Gemini on June 8th. So I think that for all the heavy emotional lifting that you're doing this month, it'll be nice to have Venus on your side this month, because it'll make you a little lighter, a little more social. So Cancer, remember how I said that June is really leading us up to July, and how there are these two eclipses that are happening on July 2nd and July 16th. And so when the sun goes into Gemini for Cancer, it means it's time to come to the end of this great story that has been going on for the past year. Everything is about cycles of time and knowing what time it is in your personal calendar. And so the month before your birthday is always that natural time to reflect, to look back. You think of it right before New Year's. What are we doing apart from, detoxing after holidays? But we're thinking about the next year. We're thinking about what we want to create. We're letting go of the old. We're making resolutions. So this time is that natural time for you, Cancer. And so you might feel that you need to take some time aside this month to rest and to reflect. And I say that as you go into July, anything that you can think of that you don't want to bring with you into this next season of your life, let it go. Whatever that looks like, whether it's a physical purge or an emotional purge. Because when you go into July with these eclipses, it's happening, there's a Cancer new moon, a solar eclipse on July 2nd. And that is this kind of personal rebirth, this time of that let's say the doors are opening in your life. Right now for Cancer, there's a lot of pressure. Got Saturn in your relationship sign. So you might be in a time of your life where either you have gotten into a serious relationship, or you're having to figure out what is going on in your primary relationship, or you're having to really work on how you interact with people in general, because your relationship sign of Capricorn is highlighted. And so this month may really test you on where you're going with a relationship, how you interact with people. Are you and somebody else, and it doesn't have to be a romantic partner, but the kind of somebody that you have joined up with, are you both on the same page? Because these eclipses is with the eclipse energy next month, it's a time when you have to commit, or whatever that is. So right now, Cancer, relationships are very highlighted. You're learning a lot of deep and powerful lessons about building connection, negotiation, interaction, and also commitment, if I didn't say that already. Going into Leo, this is a time for you about making friendships and allies. So Gemini season is a time in your calendar when it's great to be social. It's great to get out there in your community, find friendship, reconnect with friends, because life, we can't, we're not meant to spend life alone. Sometimes this time can remind us when we don't have the connection that we want. We don't have the, let's say, the friendships that we want. So use this time and use this initiative to take action, to be proactive, whether it means reaching out to friends that you already have, or going to new events, making new connections, trying to find people that are into the same type of groups that you are. It's also a time when you're thinking about the future, Gemini. And then, Leo, it's interesting because you're a sign that's already about creativity and expression and self-expression. Leo has that reputation for wanting to be on the stage, which I realize not every Leo is that extra. But this is a time when, the more that you can do to express your talents and express who you are, it's really in keeping with the energy of this time in your life. So this full moon on June 17th for you, it might really put you in the spotlight in some way, put your talents in the spotlight in some way. And then going into with we're having a couple of really intense energy around, like I said, June 14th to June 19th. Mars makes an opposition to Saturn on the 14th, I believe, and then it makes an opposition to Pluto on the 19th. And so I think that, Leo, this is also a time when you're having to do a lot of emotional, heavy lifting. And I think there's something about endings. And I know that word kind of makes people nervous, but the way that I can put it is this way. Let's say you're carrying a lot of heavy family baggage, whether it's stuff that happened to you in childhood or ancestral stuff, the stuff with parents, and you just kind of keep carrying it. And what if you could just not carry it anymore? The stories, the responsibilities, the emotions. And so I'm wondering if this kind of what you're being set up to go into July with these eclipses is really, ending some of these karmic or these family stories, these emotional stories. And do keep in mind that these eclipses touch back on January. We had 2 eclipses in January, and then previous to that we had eclipses in July of 2018, which we had, I think it was July 12th of 2018, we had an eclipse in Cancer. So this is kind of continuing a story. So in case you're like, oh, what's going to go on, just look back and try to find the thread of what these eclipses are opening for you and what they're showing that, maybe it's time to let go on an emotional level. Because it's with Mars is what's called your home and family planet. So you might find that you're just like needing to cut some ties emotionally, psychically, ancestrally as you go into July. Now I get to Taurus, Cancer, Leo, Virgo. So if shedding generational trauma, and generational trauma is real, and having worked with clients and my one-on-one sessions, you'd be surprised how often it comes up. And there's times when, I'm a psychic medium in addition to doing the astrological side of things that kind of bring them both together. I've had clients where their ancestors will come in and they're like literally cheering on the client because the ancestors are saying that they couldn't do it, whatever it was. And a lot of times it's female ancestors that had a talent that wasn't able to be expressed because of that era. You had, if you were a woman of a certain time, you had a particular role, and you had a very narrow role in the world. And so let's say it's a client that has a wonderful creative talent to write, and they're really struggling with being able to express their voice, and then their ancestors, their female ancestors, will come in and they're like, we couldn't express ourselves, please do it for us. And when we make that aha moment, when we make that change, it does ripple outward. It ripples outwards forward in time, and it ripples outwards backwards in time. I don't know, maybe you don't believe me, take my word for it, but I'm always surprised but not surprised when ancestor work comes in, and when the ancestors of the client comes in to really help people to let go. So, if this is any sort of motivation, especially as we go into eclipse season, that however, making yourself your best self and getting in touch with your talents, getting in touch with yourself, if letting go of these chains, this stuff, that the victory for yourself is a victory for your ancestors, and it's a victory for the world. It's like these energies that kind of keep spreading outward across time. So anyway, I just went off on a big tangent, but I think it's an important point to make, especially that Mars is in Cancer right now, and this eclipse on July 2nd is also in Cancer. Cancer is the sign of home and family and roots, and memories. And here we are right now, as we record this, the moon is in Cancer. So do look at your intergenerational trauma, should you feel as if that you can work on it now, because it's very powerful work. So Virgo, Gemini season for you. Gemini is what's called your career sign. And so when the sun gets into Gemini, it's in, let's say, the highest point in your calendar, the highest point in your chart. And so it's a time when you're really thinking about direction in life, your responsibilities, the role that you want to have and to be in this world. And so you might find that this past new moon, it was a couple days, actually it was yesterday, this new moon that we had, it opens up a new opportunity for you to make career change or switch jobs or get a new perspective on what you want to do professionally, if that's something that is relevant to you. But with the full moon on June 17th, it's highlighting what's called your sign of home. So you may have to have a decision to make about where you're living. You may have a move. You may be making changes in your home. So this idea that even though Gemini season for you is so much about career, it's like, what does that rest upon? What roots or what foundation have you created in your life? So this is also a month for you to really tend to what's important. To really tend to what's going to feed and care and nurture you. And as you go into eclipse season, into the end of the month and into beginning of July, do know that, Virgo, for you, that this is a time when you have to take yourself seriously. And I know you're an earth sign, and generally you take yourself seriously anyway. But Virgo, and this is like a big pep talk for Virgo, you have a tendency to put everybody else first. And in doing so, kind of diminish your own talents and abilities. And so whatever you can do this month as you go into eclipse season and you go into July, to really take yourself seriously, take your talent seriously, take your creativity seriously. I think that that's going to really make Saturn happy to, let's say, with the process of what's trying to happen here. And you might find some tension going on between, let's say, where do you belong in the world versus who you are, this idea of identity, and how maybe sometimes when we want to be our true selves, it doesn't always get well received with the world. So there is there's a courage that has to happen. There's a courage for you to have to be your real self and your true self. So Virgo, just that's my little pep talk. Also, that you might find that there's, I know that Neptune is going direct in June as well. I can't remember the date offhand, but I think it's the 18th. No, it's the 21st that it goes direct, the same day as the solstice. There may be some themes going on with relationship for you this month. What does that mean? Neptune in your relationship house right now, just be very careful about either seeing a relationship or not seeing other people clearly. Really be aware of your illusions. but also where you have a tendency to, let's say, take care of everybody else before you take care of yourself. So Virgo, your homework, and I know you like homework, this month is to put your mask on before you put anybody else's mask on first. That old kind of safety axiom. Because if you don't put your mask on first, then you're not going to be able to breathe, and that just wouldn't be good. So moving on to Libra. Libra, and again, if this is your first time joining me, I'm just going quickly through the astrology of this month for each sign. You can check out my horoscopes at empoweringastrology.com. Link is in bio. So if you're a Libra, hello, please give me a little wave if you're a Libra or Libra rising. So Libra, this month for you is about travel. So travel and education. So Gemini for you is a time when the sun is shining on, let's say, foreign travel, long distance travel. You may even be traveling as you watch this video, or you may be planning a trip. If you can't travel, maybe really try to explore the world right now, because this is a time, somebody's a triple Libra, so hopefully you're triple vacationing this month, or triple getting out into the world, because this is a time, Libra, when you have to really stretch your wings and see the world from different perspectives and see different cultures. And so this may be a time when you're also focusing on your education. It's a natural time to go back to school or think about taking classes. This is the time for you to really think about philosophy, think about what you believe in. But then the other thing is that the full moon on June 17th is also lighting up information and ideas. And so you may find that the full moon on the 17th really brings some information or some news. But I think the full moon also highlights this idea of choice. So you may find that with the full moon that you are really juggling between two, is it a left or a right, is it an up or a down? And you're Libra, also another sign that's in the gate for July's eclipses. So the eclipses on July 2nd is in your career sign of Cancer. So if you're a Libra or Libra rising, you might be seeing some career moves, some career changes this month, and then going into next month, because eclipse energy can sometimes manifest up to a month before. But I think that for Libra, this is a time when you really have to figure out what you want to do. You have to almost like leave the nest right now. You've got Saturn right now in what's called your fourth sign, your fourth house. And you might find that there's just a lot of responsibilities in the home, or maybe there's a lot of things that you're really attached to from the past or from family or home. So you have to kind of leave behind a lot of these, let's say, these things that are holding you down, like almost like at your feet. So I think going into these eclipses next month, really be open to new professional opportunities, new ways of maneuvering in the world, new ways of identifying, new ways. And I think that with Cancer as your career sign, it's really important for you to do what you love. Your heart has to be in it, Libra. And if your heart isn't in it, it's not gonna feed and nurture you. So do know that things are probably happening a lot on a professional level this month, especially with Mars going through your career sign. That's it for Libra. Oh, and I think with Venus going into Gemini on June 8th, it's gonna get out of some of that heavy energy that Libra's had maybe the past few weeks with Venus and Taurus. So I think if you're a Libra or Libra rising watching, and if things have been a little emotionally heavy, just give it until after June 8th. And then you might also be dealing with some relationship things to handle, especially with the Mars-Saturn opposition. If you're in a relationship, you might have to ask yourself, is it balanced? Going into Scorpio, Scorpio right now, Gemini season, it's kind of a familiar time for you in the sense that, and if you are a Scorpio or Scorpio rising, please give me a wave. Gemini is what's called your eighth sign, and there's a kind of a interesting connection between Gemini and Scorpio. This is just me being an astrology nerd. But so this is a time when you're kind of doing that Scorpio work, meaning you're going into your deepest self, you're facing your fears, you're looking to see what needs to be changed, what needs to be transformed. You're delving into themes of intimacy, secrets, sexuality, letting people in. It's also a time about money and resource. So Gemini season for you is when you're looking at your bank account and looking at your assets, and it's like, okay, what do I need? Is this, because Scorpio is one of the money signs, by the way. Scorpio and Taurus are money signs, so they're very driven to create financial stability in their life. The full moon on the 17th of June highlights income and resource, and so it might be a time when you, especially with Jupiter right now in your money sign, might hear about something about income. I try not to spend too much this month. Sometimes with Jupiter you might be like, wee, and just want to spend it all, but I think that it's important another reason why it's, I think, to be on your best behavior this month, because Scorpio, because Mars is making that opposition to Saturn and Pluto this month. And while I know you can handle it, Scorpio, it's just like kind of an intense energy. So you're having to sit down, I said this at the beginning of the live feed, you're having to sit down with Saturn this month, and Saturn's like, hey, is this working out for you? What do you need to do? Because you have to do X, Y, and Z to make this work. So you're under the gun this month, Scorpio, but I know you can handle it, especially as you go into eclipse season. For you, you're getting into these bigger, deeper philosophical questions of what does it all mean? Where am I going? Your Mars is kind of coming up to the top of your chart. So as you go into July, you're at your most visible, you're at your most public. And so if you want to go into July on a professional level and really make it work, you got to do your due diligence this month. So no slacking off, Scorpio, which I know you're not going to, but you've got some serious choices to make this month. Going into Sagittarius. So if you're a Sagittarius rising, definitely give me a wave or a heart. So Sagittarius, this is the time when, Gemini season is your relationship planet or your relationship sign. So this is a natural time when you are reaching out to others, when you are connecting with people. It's a time when you might feel more social than usual. And so especially with Venus and going into Gemini on June 8th, and plus the new moon we had yesterday, this is a time to really renew your relationships. So whether you are single and wanting to connect with people, or if you're in a partnership already, how do you use this kind of new energy, this renewal this month? And I said this earlier, I can't remember which sign, with the whole Jupiter-Neptune square this month, Sag, you're a sign that's really optimistic. You're a sign that is, about seeing the bigger picture. And I think with that Jupiter square Neptune, you might be having a little bit of a crisis of faith right now. Or you're getting really, emo and needing to meditate and reflect on these kind of deeper spiritual, philosophical questions. Sag, you are this sign that has so much wisdom at your fingertips, but sometimes, you can kind of, get in your way sometimes. So, but that said, it is a time that's really focused on relationship. And then the full moon is in Sagittarius on June 17th. So June 17th, the days around might be a time when you're naturally in the spotlight. So really, worth that if you need to worth that. As you go, right now Mars is in Cancer in what's called your eighth sign. So it's, Mars is kind of hitting on some deeper emotional and family stuff right now. So even though it's a bit breezy and social right now for you, Sagittarius, there's something that's going on behind the scenes for you right now. And, as you go into eclipse season, there might be some stuff that you have to face, maybe even some stuff around family or the past or old hurts, old traumas, the things that you've been kind of pushing into, I call it the psychic drawer, the psychic closet. So, Mars is, while it's not a big player in your chart, not like the other signs, it's really kind of stirring up some deep emotional material this month. And I think I said this for Leo as well. Anything that you can just let go, and maybe to that point of ancestral or intergenerational trauma, just you don't have to be defined by that anymore. So, but do enjoy more of a social time this month, especially with Venus in your relationship sign, Gemini, starting on June 8th. Then going into Capricorn, Capricorn, you are in the gate for next month's eclipses. And just like your Cancer opposing sign, this is a time when relationships are really highlighted for you. And I don't know, I kind of wrote my Capricorn horoscope, and I feel like I wrote it really seriously, which I know you're Saturn ruled, so maybe you get it, but I feel like I think it's a little bit of a hard time for Capricorn right now. And if you are a Capricorn, give a wave, give a heart, and let me know if you're feeling the same, because you've got two hardcore planets right now hanging out together, Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn. And I'm calling it the wrecking ball, Saturn conjunct Pluto. It's going to be going into next year. And I feel like Capricorn as a sign that just naturally wants to just hang on to everything, to stay the same. It wants to be in control. And I think these eclipses, and I think with Saturn and Pluto, it's saying you're not in control. And it's really hard for Capricorn to kind of watch the wrecking ball, hit things around it. And so the more that you can get out of your way this month, maybe this is why I had my here's your real talk, Capricorn. The more that you can get out of your way, the more that you can let go of the past, let go of trying to be in control, the more that you can open up to other people. It's not weird to love the wrecking ball, but sorry, I'm reading the comments. I'm a Scorpio, so part of me loves the wrecking ball, even though right now Uranus is in Taurus and everything's different, but I'm getting on a tangent. So the more that you can open up to other people, whether it's a relationship, whether it's the perspective of other people, whether it's learning how to negotiate and to have a healthy relationship with power, I think is really going to serve you well at this time. So Capricorn, you may feel that as you're going into the end of June, you're really on the precipice of something. The great wheel of your life is changing. Now this has been going on since last July. So July we had eclipses, July 2018, and then we had the eclipses in January of this year. So you might feel that there's a thread that's going on. Somebody asked if this is general information or something specific. This is information that is specific to Capricorn or Capricorn rising. So big hugs to you, Capricorn, right now, because I think it's been a bit of a time for you. So whatever, also I think it's a good time to really engage in self-care if you can make that a priority. And especially with Gemini season being on, Gemini season really about being health and wellness right now. The more that you can kind of take care of your body and take care of your body's needs is really important right now. Going on to Aquarius, starting to get into the home stretch. Aquarius, just getting myself oriented. So this is a time when on one hand it's about creativity having fun this month. I know there's a sign that gets to have fun this month, about having, going out and traveling and exploring, because right now the sun is in what's called your fifth sign. But Aquarius, your ruling planet is Saturn, and Saturn has been kind of ducked behind the scenes for the last year and a half, 2 years, and so you might, there's a part of you that's like, kind of coming out of things and kind of finding your place right now. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes. I think it's going to be a month of a lot of work right now. I mean like not emotional work. I don't know, maybe emotional work, but more like, just kind of real practical stuff. You just might have a lot of projects that you have to get done. Work might be really busy for Aquarius right now. You might actually feel like, it's kind of nonstop work a bit, which is kind of interesting because how do you have fun? So you might be doing a lot of work and play this month, Aquarius. But know that, going into next month's eclipses, you are at the end of a really, really long story, Aquarius. And your planet Saturn is in a part of your chart that it's at the end of this nearly 30-year story. And I don't care if you are not even 30 yet, but when you going into next spring, or which would be the autumn for my friends in Australia, you're going to be coming into this new time in your life, Aquarius. So a lot of things are kind of on the edge of a new beginning for you. So that's the bigger perspective, but I think in the meantime, just try to have some fun this month. So finally, Pisces. And Pisces, for you, this, right now the sun is at the bottom of the chart. And if you are a Pisces or Pisces rising, do give me some love or give a wave. So this is about, where do you live? What are your roots? What is your home? What is your family? So you might feel that you're pulling back from the world a little bit, Pisces. You too are in that, let's say, that Jupiter-Neptune square boat. And it might be a time when you too are also kind of thinking about deeper existential or spiritual questions, or wondering, what does it all mean? Jupiter right now is in your career sign of Sagittarius. So this full moon on June 17th, you might be a really great time to get noticed professionally. There might be, if you're trying to get a new job or trying to get that interview, that full moon might be a really great time for you. Do know that, with Jupiter in your 10th house, this is a time for you to really kind of make some big strides professionally. It might also feel like you're working a lot. But I think, Jupiter with Sagittarius being your career sign, do remember, Pisces, that a lot. This is a time about you really sharing with the world what you know, being the guru, so to speak. Jupiter, in that very traditional view, is the guru of all the planets. But I mean that in like the best way. Like, being the guru is like you know something, or you have a deep wisdom or knowledge about something, and like sharing it with the world, and maybe making that part of your professional life. For you, Pisces, one of the things that you're working on this month is letting go of that old story about not having any friends. There's some story that's happening right now in Pisces where you are really aware of this idea of connection. Are you connected with, do you have friends? Do you feel like you belong? Maybe it goes into a deeper story, because sometimes when Saturn is going through this part of your chart, you kind of feel like your nose is pressed up against the glass looking in, and everybody else is having fun, and you're wondering how to be a part of that. So really letting go of that old story that you don't belong, or you don't have your friends, or you don't have your tribe, because with Mars going through Cancer right now and the eclipses coming into Cancer, this is a time of you really celebrating who you are, Pisces. And so anything you can do to really let loose, let your freak flag fly, to create and to express yourself is really going to help you move forward on a deeper spiritual level. I will also say that Pisces, you have Neptune stationing in your what's called your first house, and so you might find that June for you is a little bit more sensitive than usual. Somebody was asking about how this would affect their child. Yes, this is, from the perspective of an adult. If you have children, children interact with astrology on a much more basic level. I would see where the sun is, where the moon is, where Mars is, because children are much more on that kind of rudimentary needs level. Now, once they get past age 7, and age 7 is one of those like markers with development. Age 7 is when Saturn, they have what's called their first Saturn square. So it's really 7, 14, 21, 28, 29. It's not until they get past 7 that they start to have a little bit more of a connection to the outer planets. But when they're 7 and younger, it's much more Mars, Venus, Sun, Moon. So I would just kind of pay attention to kind of that more of that surface level energy. Somebody asked about, does this count for Pisces moon as well? And this is a question I get. Should you read for your moon sign? You know what? If you read for your horoscope for your moon sign and you get something out of it, then great. I personally don't read for my moon sign. I haven't quite connected. In reality, you can read all of the horoscopes from the perspective of the planet that is in that sign in your chart. This is something called derived houses. So you can get but see it from a different perspective, or see it from a different role in your life. I actually get a lot out of reading for this is a intermediate point. If you know what the chart ruler is, the chart ruler is the ruler of your ascendant. If you know where it is by sign in your chart, I actually find that sometimes reading for the chart ruler gives me information. And I don't seek this out, but my chart ruler is in Leo. So when I'm reading Leo, or writing Leo rather, I'm like, that sounds a lot like what's going on in my life. So I don't know. Like I said, if you want to read for your moon sign, have at it. If you're getting some sort of connection or wisdom, then by all means. Which now brings me to my quick reads for our lucky winners. And this is very interesting. This is for Aubrey and Taryn. I say interesting because here I was talking a lot about Cancer and Capricorn and these eclipses that are coming up. And Aubrey is a Capricorn rising and Taryn is a Cancer rising. So this was completely random. If you were on my live feed last week, I had 3 Leos, Leo rising. Nothing is random. That's what the reality is. And it's really to highlight a very particular energy that's present right now in this moment. And so right now it's really about Cancer Capricorn. And Cancer is a sign that really talks about needs. What do you need? It's the kind of the archetypical mother, and Capricorn is a sign of, what do you need, but on a more of a structural foundation level. It's the archetype of the father. And that's where a lot of this push-pull is happening this month. So for Aubrey, who was born April 3rd, 1990, Gemini season for you is a time, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying for the Capricorns listening, this is a time when you really have to focus on real life. Real life means getting up on time, doing your job, paying your bills, brushing your teeth, eating your vegetables, and taking care of your body. So knowing that you're under a lot of pressure right now, and I know, Aubrey, you're an Aries, but I'm just kind of focused more on the fact that you're the Capricorn rising. Knowing that this is a time for you to, let's say, get your life in order, however you need to do that. If it means cleaning out your closets. And if you're a Capricorn, this, you can kind of take some wisdom from this too, or Capricorn rising. If you clean out your closets, cleaning out your fridge, cleaning out your cabinets, because the idea is that you're in a time when the wrecking ball is coming, and you need to make some space for things. You need to kind of get your life in order. So, Aubrey, if you're listening, or if you're a Capricorn listening, or Capricorn rising, this is when you need to really focus on that very pragmatic time of life, and also taking care of your body, focusing on diet, nutrition, anything that's going to really promote health and wellness right now. For you, you're part of that micro generation that was born 88, 89, 90, where you have all these planets in Capricorn. So it kind of adds to the intensity. And I'm just noticing this. You're also going through your Saturn return. So if you're listening and you are aged 28, 29, I would even say 30, you are going through a major rite of passage. 28, 29 is like a Saturn age. And the Saturn return means Saturn is literally returning to where it was when you were born. So you're under a lot of pressure right now, Aubrey, to kind of figure out these big questions in life. Who am I? What do I want to be when I grow up? Where do I want to go? There might be a lot of things going on with relationship right now. I don't know what your story is, Aubrey, but maybe these eclipses, especially the lunar eclipse on July 17th, really does speak to relationships. So if you're in a relationship, you may have some decisions that you need to make. If you're not in a relationship, it's a time when it's really opening to the energy of partnership in all of its forms. And then with the eclipses also activating your chart, the summer, or this July, is really a turning point for you, Aubrey. So hang in there. It looks like it's a bit of an intense time in your life. As somebody that's been through the Saturn return and then some at this point, I'm like 11 years past my Saturn return. Do whatever Saturn is asking of you. And I say this from personal experience. If your life is a mess, which, hey, it happens. My life was a mess when I hit my Saturn return. Just get it in order, pay the bills, eat your vegetables, show up on time, really honor that energy of Saturn, because Saturn is time, it's commitment, it's structure, and it's order. And that's everything that we need here in this physical world. And of course, we need more than that. But at the very beginning, we are physical beings. So that's what's going on for you. You're in eclipse prep this month, Aubrey. And then I will say that your Saturn return will be exact. I believe it's next January, February, if I'm doing my math correctly. So hang in there, Aubrey, if you're listening. And then my final mini read winner is Taryn, and she was born November 6, 1990, a fellow Scorpio. She has late Cancer rising, and she also has a Cancer moon. So right now, this is a time when the energies of Gemini are starting to wane, and you're coming into the end of something. I'm having to wrap up real quickly because I only have a minute and a half left. But this is a time when you have to really wrap things up and to end a lot of old cycles and end a lot of old karmic cycles. And you too are in your Saturn return, boy oh boy. So you're having to really make some decisions about your life. I would definitely listen to what I said for Aubrey a few moments ago. Commitment and really getting your life in order right now. Because for you, it's a lot about relationships, but it's also about taking care of yourself and taking care of your body. You have Saturn in the 6th house right now. Unfortunately, that's really only I have time for, but know that the July 2nd and the July 16th eclipses are going to be a really big time for you. Both of you, the doors are swinging of your life. So really take some powerful and empowered choices in your life. So again, I know we're coming up on an hour, and not all of you have managed to stay with me, but thank you for listening. Please check out my website. Please check out my services. I'm teaching a webinar on June 25th, which is on eclipse season, to help you understand how to work with this energy, because these eclipses do want something of you. I'm also going to be teaching a webinar on Chiron. I think it's going to be that weekend before. And so Chiron is this, a really powerful energy in the chart that a lot of people don't know about, but Chiron is the what we're trying to heal in this lifetime. So anyway, I only have 10 minutes left, but I want to say thank you to everybody. Please check me out online, and I hope to see you at a future live Instagram Live. Bye.